Does your back suck? Can you still fit through doorways? Despite how many lat pull downs or barbell rows that you do you still have measly lats? Well, the problem is you have been skipping something you didn't even know existed. The silver era classic, the holy grail of the V-taper, the one, the only pullover! Now that may seem a bit dramatic, but I'm telling you guys, incorporating this one exercise will change your physique the most of anything since you were a beginner lifter. But before we get into the secrets of the pullover, I'd like to ask you guys to like and subscribe. Small channel, we're trying to grow. Hopefully you like this video. If you do, leave a comment about something that you learned and let's get into it. I'm going to go over what the pullover is and some of the history behind it, the benefits of the pullover, how to do it and the different variations, and then finally how to put it into your program for the most gains and the most ease of use. Let's get into it. Starting with, how did the pullover come to be? The pullover really became popular through lifters like Steve Reeves and Arnold back in the silver and golden eras, and for good reason. They used these to blow up and change their physique. It was known as the squat of the upper body because of the amount of phenomenal gains that you could reap from this exercise. Unfortunately, it's fallen a bit out of popularity in favor of one arm stretch, wraparound pull, iliac lat pull downs, which have their place in a program, but definitely do not mock this exercise, which is usually performed with a dumbbell, but also, as I'll get into later, there are a ton of variations. As I've said before, this is about blowing your back up, but a lot of people will say the pullover is not a back exercise. Well, that's true. That's why it's the squat of the upper body, because it also hits your chest, it also hits your triceps, and most importantly, it hits your serratus anterior, the fish gills. Now, this is the reason that back in the day, and some people still now believe that the pullover expands your rib cage, because it packs on mass on your serratus anterior, those fish gill muscles that sit upon your ribs right in front of your lats. One of the most aesthetic muscles, especially as you're bulking, having those sitting there makes you appear way leaner than you are as your obliques and your abs fade. Now, I'm not sure if this exercise actually does expand your ribcage, but for damn sure, it has made me appear wider in the chest and more snatched at the waist. I don't know if it's changed my bone structure, but it's definitely put mass on me. So why the hell does this exercise need to be in your program? Let's talk benefits. First is the huge stretch on your lats and serratus anterior, especially when you're able to control it from 2 points in your body. Not only can you control it with moving your shoulder further back, but also dropping your hips and stretching that lat from the bottom position along with the top. And in that deep position, it works the lats through shoulder flexion and extension, which is secondary to something like a lat pull down or a pull up, which is mostly shoulder adduction. It is also highly scalable to skill levels and loadable once you reach an adequate level and want to start packing on the weight. Holy crap, along with the amount of variations that you can do, the amount of stretch and loaded stretch while still being controlled and powerful is insane. And with that, working in this deep range of motion with significant weights bulletproofs your shoulders. I'll eventually make a video on my holy grail of bulletproof shoulder exercises, but let me tell you, this is one of those on the list. And finally, it slots perfectly into your program. Your chest has chest flies as a finisher. Your quads have leg extensions as a finisher. But what do your lats have? They have the pullover. All right, let's get into the different variations that you can perform. I've found 4 in total. You have the dumbbell version, you have the bar version, you have the cable version, and you have the machine version. I'll go over how to do each of them and then the cues that apply to all of them, starting with the dumbbell version. You want to lay horizontally on the bench, perpendicular to what you would usually do on like a dumbbell press, and this is very key because it allows you to drop the hips and get more stretch. Place your head slightly over the back of the edge and lock your shoulder blades back and in. As you lower the weight, you want to drop your hips along with it, stretching that lat both from the shoulder joint and from the hips. Once you have your hips down, keep them there for the entire set. Even as you come up, try to drop them lower to maintain a bit more stretch on the lat. And speaking of bringing it up, you don't need to bring it up all the way. Once you feel a significant amount of tension go out of the lat, then you can start lowering it back down. I find these to be really good with rest pause, so sometimes I'll bring it all the way to the top, adjust my grip a little bit, reset, and continue to go on. It really is a feeling thing. It is totally okay to have your elbows bend during this exercise, especially as you use heavier weight and the dumbbells get bigger, that you need to bend your elbow not only so it doesn't hit earlier, but also so you can get a greater stretch on your lat. As long as your elbow is still moving backwards and down and it's not just turning into a tricep extension, then you are getting more lat gains. I personally let my elbows bend a whole lot because it leads to the most stretch for my lat. And also, who even is complaining about some extra arm work to go along with it? That just seems like a bonus to me. One other cue that I have is keep a big chest as you come up. This may activate your chest a bit more, but I found I can drag through my lats even better, and it really allows me to feel the contraction going there and that shoulder extension and flexion. Now, as for the bar, I've never actually done it because dumbbells have always just felt good and it seems a bit too much of a hassle, along with laying normally on the bench, because the other variation has just felt too good. The cues will remain the same if you're using a bar. Just make sure to select a grip width that doesn't irritate your wrists. As for the cable variation, I like to choose a wider bar, especially those lat pull down bars with the curves on the end, to hit a different angle of the lats. Take a step back and allow your arms to be pulled fully forward into the stretch position as you bend over and push your hips back. Engage your shoulders down and back, contracting through your lats as you keep your hips back, bringing that bar to that belly button hip area, whatever is farthest back point, and bringing your chest up as you do to contract those lats fully. As you go into the eccentric, allow it to go all the way to that top position while keeping resistance. Do not let the resistance out of your shoulders or your lats. Keeping that tension really gets that finisher burn feeling that I'm talking about. Same thing with chest flies or leg extensions. On these ones, it is especially easy to do partial reps, and I encourage it. Some people use a rope attachment or a close grip attachment, but I've found by far and away that regular lat pull down bar is just the best one, especially with those curved handles, because you can pull it a bit more behind your body. And despite this being a stretch focused exercise, I am a friend of the contraction, because you know what the contraction is? That's the pump. You know what the pump is? A glimpse into the future of not fitting through doorways. Now, as for the machine, if you're lucky enough to have one of these in your gym, just get in there, grip it, and rip it. I like to drop the seat down pretty low so I can still stretch with my hips, and mine's actually in front of the wall so I can brace with my feet and pull my hips down further. I don't use the elbow pads because it kind of messes with my mind muscle connection, and I just find a grip that's comfortable and drive through those lats while keeping a big chest. Honestly, it's my least favorite of the three variations, but because it's the most highly loadable and it's the easiest to set up, I actually put it earlier in my workout, unlike the other two, and put it on my arm day and really focus in on it as a progression. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, it's the most stable, the most loadable, and the easiest to set up. Now, tips that apply to every variation is go past failure and really milk the stretch. Pull through your elbows, and with your elbows, try rotating them in to really activate those lats and stay locked in. I've found that flaring out your elbows makes the efficaciousness of this exercise go down significantly. But hey, if it feels best for you and your lats are getting destroyed, sure, go for it. Just be careful. Now let's talk a little bit of programming and what a proper back day should look like and where to put the pullover in it. Assuming that you're training twice a week, you're going to have a primary pull on either day. On one day, it should be a heavier vertical pull. On the other day, a heavier horizontal row. Now, I mean heavier as in just the most bang for your buck exercise. This is usually going to be pull-ups, barbell rows, lat pull down, something like that. You're then going to follow that up with your secondary pull or row, depending on what you did first. This can be something with deeper range of motion, or it can be unilateral, or whatever the hell you really want to do. But this is where your iliac lat pull around would fit in if it had a place in your program. And then after this, you have your pullovers. Your shoulders are nice and warmed up and ready to go. As I talked about earlier, they are like the chest flies or the leg extensions for the lats. With how warmed up you are, your mind-muscle connection is locked in. It's a great place to learn the exercise, especially trying to feel that deep stretch and really grind those pass failure reps to end your back workout on a high note. Now, if you hit back 3 times a week like I do, then your third day you can open with a pullover. So one day you open with a vertical pull, and then one day you open with a horizontal row, and now this third day you open with a pullover. As I talked about earlier, I choose that machine variation for this day, but I also superset it with shoulder press so my shoulders get warm as fast as possible, and I make sure my first set in that superset is the shoulder press after properly warming up in totality, because despite these being excellent for bulletproofing your shoulders, that's because you are training in an extended range of motion, and if you're not properly warmed up, something could go wrong. So I always make sure I'm ready to rip before I actually start ripping. Now, the final thing you need for a comprehensive back day, besides not skipping arms, is an upper back rear delt exercise. This is a fly of some sorts, whether it's dumbbells on the pec deck, on the cables, but that's a video for another time. Jeff never just dropped a shoulder tier list, so maybe I'll dismantle him as somebody with actually gigantic shoulders. Hold up, let me get the angle, hold up. What's a good shoulder angle? Yeah, gigantic ass shoulders. Yeah, look at those rear delts. Okay, back on track. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching it if you've made it this far. Go and put the pullover in your program. It will absolutely change your physique. Like and subscribe. We're trying to grow this channel. And I'm out. Peace.